So, hello to Lewis Pearson from OLY Clothing, and welcome to Healthy Happy Humans. And how are you today, buddy?
I'm great, Decky. Thank you so much for having me on, mate.
An absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast, buddy. So, we're going to do a quick chat today and get an episode of the pod done. But like you and I were just talking about off call, Healthy Happy Humans is really just about tips for people, if anybody could be bothered to listen to it, tips for people about being positive and building a successful lifestyle, both sort of personally and professionally. You've obviously developed a successful reputation, and your brand, your company, OLY Clothing, has become not just nationwide known, but probably a global reputation at this point. But how are you personally doing, and how is your company doing during lockdown at the minute, Lewis?
Great question, mate. Great question. Yeah, well, where do I start? A lot of our business changed overnight. Whenever the regulations were put up and kind of isolation went in and quarantine went into effect, we lost about 60 to 70% of our revenue overnight, which is big for any business. We lost our full event calendar, which was difficult. We had put a lot of emphasis on our event calendar this year, in terms of bringing revenue into the company, but also part of our marketing and PR attempts. And then we lost the custom apparel side of the business. So we've had to do the whole magic P word of pivoting, as have a lot of other businesses. We're very lucky in that we're still quite small in the grand scheme of things, and it's easy for us as a small business to make changes. It's easy for us in comparison to the likes of a big NGO like Almac or something. We can change overnight, whereas someone like that would struggle to do it. So, yeah, we've just primarily moved a lot of the business onto e-commerce, really, which has been nice. I mean, we're still in our startup phase, so I'm kind of a jack of all trades running about like a blue ass fly. So it's kind of been nice to have to only focus on one or two things at a time. And, it means that the warehouse team are only focusing on one or two things at a time. And it's a complete change in intensity of our day and workload and how we're approaching each day. But it's been a welcome change, in my opinion.
That's an amazing positive insight straight away. Like, we're a couple of minutes into this podcast, and with my first question, which is the biggest challenge that we've seen in over a century for any business or for a lot of people. And straight away you come in with a huge positive spin on being a small, nimble business who've been able to pivot. And you use that word pivot, which everybody's trying to do right now.
Yeah.
Because it's affected everybody.
Yeah.
And myself included. But so what has been then a little bit of your pivot to e-commerce? What does that mean for people who don't know what that means?
Really, for me, it means I would say 80 to 85% of my time is just spent on the back end of our website now. So our relationship with our customers totally changed. The way we're communicating with our customers changed from content. We're only doing podcasts and email now at the moment. So what that means is how our customer interacts with our business has totally changed. So we got to adapt to that. So we seen an increase or a spike in traffic going to our website. And so, for example, I've just sat in the back end of the website, like I say, but I've been making the customer journey, step by step of what the customer would experience whenever they come onto our site. I've been trying to make that process as streamlined as possible and as simple as possible. We've got people coming on and buying in less than a minute now. Which is absolutely crazy for me. I'm a consumer that likes to take my time when I buy, but so really just SEO optimization, trying to nail our marketing, trying to pivot our message a bit differently. The message is still there, but we just got to change the way that we communicate that message, and that's what we've done. So even if you wanted kind of real life examples, we've increased average order value by adding in entry level products. We have kind of taken our increase in traffic and fed that into new communication streams with our customer. We don't communicate via Instagram and Facebook anymore, which is a big thing. But for example, with consumerism now, we have more people online than ever before. We have more people in front of screens, which some could say is a good thing, and it is a great thing. But what that does is, for me, it increases the noise that's online. So it's either I change the way I communicate to my customer, or I pay more to get in front of my customer. And we're a small business and we just don't have budget. So, I had to change that. And now we solely communicate via podcast and email, which you and I know is completely free. So, yeah, those are just a small amount of the changes we've made, the ones that I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, this has been a really perfect time for me to start a podcast, which I've been procrastinating about for a really, really long time. As you said, it's a free way to reach people, and even if that doesn't necessarily mean revenue or income for you straight away. Like I've listened to your podcast. You're great on a podcast, and your OLY podcast, and you have great guests and great speakers. But I guess one of the things that I thought about after listening to your podcast and watching those videos was that could sit with me for 6 months, and then it could pop into my head as a future consumer. And I think that's it's hard to measure, but I think that is money in the bank in terms of you're in a retail business, and as long as you're reaching people, I suppose at some point you've got into their brain for a retail choice further down the line.
So kind of for us, Decky, the reason we even set up the podcast, and I hear you talking about like the financial side of it and stuff there. So for us, the main reason we set up our podcast was purely to communicate more information easier. So for example, the mission statement of OLY Clothing is to spread the message of health, wealth, fitness, and wellness to the masses, and that's our commitment to our customer. So it was kind of early January, we decided, right, we're not going to be able to do this via email or via social media. So we need to change the way that we're communicating this goal and this mission. So we went to work recording all these shows, and the idea was to get all these successful people on the show, and if I could suck out of them, we tips and tricks that the average layman could apply to their life. That to me is a success. That to me is a win. The overarching goal of the brand is to help people holistically succeed. So I might have confused it there a bit, but my ultimate.
And sorry, go on ahead. Your ultimate.
My ultimate aim is to do that, and that's kind of why we've got these people on. So to bring it back around to what you were saying, is we actually don't intend on making a single penny from the podcast. For me, it's just more so about showing you what we're about as a brand, what we're trying to achieve, and also the main part of that is I want to get someone on that can teach you something, can teach you about maybe running a business or training or what it takes to be an Olympic level swimmer. I don't know, but there's definitely going to be some parts of those shows that you'll learn from.
Look, man, it's like you're reading off a script of my thoughts right now, because one of the reasons I'm delighted to have you as a guest on this is exactly the same thing I'm trying to do with this, is just
awesome.
Give something to people for some positivity and some progress and some tips and tricks for a successful lifestyle. And I mean, look, I've known you for a really long time, originally from rugby, and then I mean, I remember talking to you in the early days when you were just a few weeks into setting up OLY. I was chatting to you in the gym, but you were, what made you decide on clothing? Like, what was it about that sort of going into that specific sort of area that you decided, well, that's what I'm going to do?
Yeah, good question. So it kind of all comes back to, there's a couple of things within that. So I'd actually tried 3 or 4 business ideas prior to OLY, and through one reason or another, they really never took off, or I maybe just got it so fucking wrong that sorry to swear there, I got it so wrong that it just kind of withered and died. But whenever it came to OLY, at that point, I had worked up a bit of venture capital from another business that I had started. I'd started running nights in nightclubs, and was DJing and doing all kinds of crazy things. And I think I ran an event while I was away traveling Thailand, and I got my mates to run the event for me. And I made enough money. I think I made like £1,800 with a friend, and that to me, like, we split it 50-50, so I think I got £900 net profit. And that it's not a huge amount of money, but you know, I had just spent the guts of my, you know, previous 5 or 6 years working for £7 an hour, so you can imagine my enjoyment. So yeah, you know, so in that moment, coming back from Thailand, that was the moment I knew that business was for me. I've always liked the idea that if I'm going to work harder than you, I deserve to reap the reward of that. And that's been prevalent in whether it be sports or whether it be school or business. It's all the same. So yeah, it was kind of, I had to pay my car insurance off. Which was 500 quid. So that left me with 400 quid. And I was like, right, I've got all this energy, I've got all this motivation and momentum, and I want to put my own twist on something. So what do? And like every creative on earth, they go out and start a clothing brand. But to be honest, Decky, it was purely because the barrier to entry was so low. You know, with 400 quid, I got a business up and going. And that was from development to or incentivization to development of product. Like that was everything included. So the barrier to entry was very, very low. And to be brutally honest, it was never ever meant to be, well, put it this way, I was never meant to be doing OLY right now. Like,
so that's an incredible story. Like, did you have any experience prior to that? So did you have any experience in clothing or apparel or anything like that?
Not a thing, not a notion.
You took 400 quid, no experience, no relevant qualifications other than a bit of real life experience, and you took 400 quid and you added a bit of hard work, a lot of hard work, and you've built a company, a successful company. So it's bound to have taken quite a lot of hard work, man.
Yeah, hard work's definitely a part of the ingredients batch for sure. I think. What did you say, mate?
Where does that drive come from? Like, what inside you that gives you that hard work ethic?
To be honest, Decky, I think it's been a weird thing. I've always had some weird, crazy bundle of energy inside me. Like you'll know from even the rugby days when I was 16, 17, 18, I was always, if you gave me exercises to do for rehab, I would have done them and then some. You know, I was always on your ass about shit. I was always, it's just something that if there's something I'm passionate about, and I think I'm good at, I'll do. And then, so that was always sports. And then with business, as you know, having to take a back seat with rugby, business kind of came in and filled that void. And it was something where I could really express myself well. You know, I'm a competitive person. I like hard work. I like to reap the benefits of hard work as well. But I don't know, to be honest, Decky, it's always something I knew intrinsically I was always going to do. I've worked over 25 different jobs since I was like 14, 15. You know, I got my first job when I was like 11. So I've always worked, and hard work's been ingrained in me. You know, I can really put that down to my grandparents and my mum and dad for giving me that example. But yeah, it's always been something I knew I was going to do. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But you know, here we are doing apparel and a brand, and you know, in another 5 years, it could be something totally different.
Yeah, I know you've got some really strong family links there, man, and I know that family's hugely important to you.
Big time.
What other successful traits do you think, or sorry, what other character traits do you think then make a successful person? Because it sounds like your judgment of yourself sounds very similar to mine, and that I got my first job at 11, and I've never been out of employment since. So
yeah.
It just felt like it was something in me, or something that maybe the family put in me from an early age.
Yeah.
What do you think are character traits that make successful people, Lewis?
I would say tenacious people are often can go on and be quite successful. I think visionaries and dreamers, people who see a problem and instantly think, right, I could do that better. Because that's kind of where my idea came from. I just was like, shit, I can do this better than they're doing it, or they're doing it. And you're wrong at the time, but it's like, if you believe yourself enough, it doesn't matter. I think naivety is a big thing as well, and often people look at naivety as a bad thing. But let me tell you something: if I had knew just how much work would go into building this business, I probably wouldn't have done it. if I had known pre-hand just the amount of work that actually goes into it. But no, there's a lot of things that can make people go to business or get into business, Decky, to be honest. I mean, people who have a big enough why or a reasoning for doing something, or maybe there's creatives out there that want to express themselves. For me, it was a kind of a massive culmination of all these things, and it was just the point where I was at in my life. I started Ollie at university with a small bit of money, and I'm not the only one that's done that. So, but then again, there's individuals like my mum that well. She started her business in her late 40s, so it really doesn't matter what age you are. I think it's kind of something that comes from within, and if you think you can do it, generally you're right.
Yeah, I love that. Like I said, I don't know who the quote's from, but there's a quote I love, which is, whether you think you're wrong or you think you're right, you're right.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
I might have got that wrong there. But what is it then that you do outside of Ollie and outside of the work stuff, man? What are your passions, and what do you enjoy? What do you do for fun, for relaxation? What's your lifestyle like outside of work?
Pretty active life. I'm pretty sure I've got undiagnosed ADD. I like to stay active. I like to. I'm a competitor at heart. I always have been. I think that's kind of where a lot of my life now stems from. I do competitive CrossFit, and the training with that's pretty intense and pretty voluminous, and so that definitely keeps me busy in that regard. And then, yeah, I'm quite a social butterfly, but I'm now as I grew up a bit more, I'm starting to spend a lot more time on my own. But yeah, mate, anything from reading to exercising, all those real probably gay things that every 25-year-old shouldn't be doing, I'm doing it. So um yeah, like I love competition. It'll be something that I do right up until I can't really compete at a high level anymore. And yeah, it forms a big part of my life, and the business within that, obviously.
Yeah,
But
like
I
that's been a huge link for you and for the brand. Is obviously, I mean, you got into CrossFit, and your competitive personality really, it magnetized to that style of training.
big time.
But you've then aligned the brand and the company with CrossFit in a huge way. So you have as well, and they're really intricate together, CrossFit and the OLY clothing.
Big time.
And it's synonymous, I would say. Like, and you had mentioned earlier that you've been missing events. So I presume you meant like both marketing events, but specifically CrossFit competitions and training events.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So CrossFit was our launch market, should we say, and it was actually just by chance, to be honest. Like, everybody always asks me, "Oh, what was your decision behind going in there?" And to be honest, it was kind of what I knew at the time. I had been doing CrossFit as a rehab and kind of weight maintenance training program, just to help with S&C for rugby. And then the more I got into it, the more I enjoyed it. And then with my big injury, my big knee injury, meaning I couldn't go back to rugby, it was kind of a very natural progression. But yeah, no, CrossFit was our launching niche, and like I say, it was the market I knew best at the time. I knew what materials were being used on the different apparel categories. I knew what products had functionality. I knew what products were even being used and were relative in that sport. Which was great, because CrossFit, highly affluent market to launch in, a very, very community-driven market space as well. So word soon spread fast when the one and only clothing brand relative to CrossFit had launched in Ireland. So yeah, it was a great launching market, mate, and it was a market that I was already into and passionate about. So it kind of went hand in hand. So as a brand, we're trying to move solely into training and lifestyle. So CrossFit will be encompassed in that. But my big goal is to kind of get us recognized for being orientated with anything training and lifestyle related, really. Because in my opinion, training and exercise, that element of that lifestyle is ultimately what can lead to helping people become successful without them even realizing it. And you know yourself, you know the foundations of regular exercise and what that can do for someone.
Yeah, man. Like this, my Healthy Happy Humans podcast wasn't meant to be a fitness podcast, but it's a theme that comes up in every episode. That, you know, whether I want to talk to somebody from business or somebody from a professional point of view or like a mental health point of view, exercise seems to be like training seems to be like a metaphor for success in mental health, physical, business, lifestyle. You know, training seems to be one of those key shared fundamentals for people who are getting their goals done, getting things done in life that they want to get done. People are doing that in train.
Yeah, absolutely, and you'll know as well. I mean, I'm going to take what you've said and run with it a wee bit. I don't really think people understand the prevalence and the importance of exercise and how that will impact your life. I mean, you and I both know that doing an hour of exercise a day is the best medicine you can possibly give to anyone. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. I mean, from a health perspective, you've also got the clear positive consequences, but also from a lifestyle perspective. I mean, if you're exercising and you're looking better, you're going to look better for your partner, you're going to feel better about yourself. Secondly, a routine element of it is that if you have exercise in your routine every day, that's what I call an anchor. So that's happening at 7 o'clock and nothing's going to take that away. And you could maybe work up until 6:30 so that you can get to training at 7, or that you can say to your wife or your partner or your boyfriend, look, I'm going to the gym for that hour, don't talk to me, that's my hour. And there's so much that comes from exercise, and another one could be the relationships you build from going to that gym, or having that running partner, or doing that fucking, I don't know, fell running team. It could be anything, but there's so many positive knock-ons from exercise that it's just, in my opinion, it's just I just don't understand why people don't do it. And I think that was the main reason we set out to build OLY was the implications of sedentary lifestyle and chronic disease, and what that was causing for not only individuals but for society in general, and we wanted to do something about it. So and that's why we try to spread as much information about training and making it cool to be or to make it cool to do exercise. That's what we wanted to try and achieve, and we're getting there slowly but surely.
Well, it's really been pushed into the spotlight right now, Lewis, because when you see a global pandemic and one of the top features of government policy is to prioritize exercise and outdoor activity as one of the main features as what government is doing for society. In our lifetimes, and I'm a little bit older than you, but in our lifetimes, we've seen a massive shift in society towards the value of exercise and putting that into the center of society. You touched on something I thought was really, really interesting and really great there about all of the new connections that you've made by bringing a brand and bringing yourself into the fitness industry.
For sure.
And you talk about CrossFit having such a great sense of community. So obviously you've had a lot of new opportunities, and you've met an awful lot of new people along the way and along your journey. But what are some of the sacrifices, and what are some of the things you've had to leave behind? What have you missed out on as part of putting in the work along the way?
This is probably like, I'll do my best to answer this, but it's probably I'm the wrong person to ask this, because I'm like almost selfish in a way. I know, for example, a lot of my personal relationships have suffered. I've had partners that I've had to not necessarily leave, but because I was so invested in my business, I maybe wasn't the most present partner with them. And I'm not, for me personally, I'm not going to do anything in life unless I'm giving it my all. And so there's been relationships that I've maybe had to break away in life, and maybe some toxic friendships that I've had to reluctantly give up on. The main one is really the financial risk. I'm 25 years old, and even now we've got a thriving business, and it's growing literally day by day. And yet, personally, I'm not really that well off, and a lot of people would be surprised to hear that. But I think it's the risk, really. I mean, it's one big gamble, it's one big bet to hedge yourself against the world, because for example, within my friend group, most of my friends have money for a deposit on a house. I mean, I'll be in this house with my parents until they kick me out if I could have it that way. But so there's a couple of things, and I think that's what really separates an entrepreneur from someone who isn't an entrepreneur at heart, really. It's being able to live with that pressure of not knowing where your next paycheck's coming from, not knowing if it's even going to work out, maybe being misunderstood by people around you, your family and your friends. That was a very, very difficult part for me. I don't rely on anyone for my motivation or my drive, but sometimes it can be disheartening when the people closest to you don't really see your vision, and that's going to happen. But at the end of the day, it's totally fine. It's just a part of it. And that's really, really prevalent in the first year. So yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to really take into consideration. I mean, it's just normal for me now, and that's kind of why I said, I might be the wrong person to ask, because I don't really do. It's not that I don't dwell, but I don't even notice them at times because I'm so engulfed in what I do, and that can actually be a negative implication as well. It's not all good to be in your lane at all times.
You're definitely not the wrong person to ask, mate, because even though we're having a chat right now, we're keeping things quite light and we're having a laugh there, but you've touched on a couple of things like that. That was a couple of really heavy points in my opinion. You touched on having to leave. You talked about toxic friendships and having to just leave those behind. That's something that I heard Robin van Persie talking about recently on another podcast about a moment in his career as a footballer where he had to just say, look, my friends from childhood that I tried to bring with me on this journey, and he had to just leave them behind and tell them I'm leaving you behind. And that's not an easy thing, mate. We're having a bit of fun here, but those aren't easy things to sort of take care of in your own personal lifestyle.
Yeah, especially I'm lucky, like I got into my entrepreneur journey quite young. So like with learning to do business, I've also been learning to do life. So, I had never experienced losing a friend. I know that sounds silly, but yes, you have your childhood friends that you kind of grew away from, but it's a whole different ball game whenever you're actively trying to move away from a friend that really wasn't adding value to your life. And not that all friends should, that's not what I'm saying, but it was just confusing, very confusing at the time, because it's the first time like anywhere between 18 to 22, you're doing a lot of learning. And like I say, along with my business learning, I was also doing life learning. So it can be confusing at times. And the biggest thing for me was actually learning to listen to my gut and like listening to intrinsically what I actually thought was right. It's something that I don't do often because you always doubt that you're going to make the wrong call. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with your decisions. And if that voice in your mind is saying, look, what the hell are you doing? Wasting your time with them, or you're finding that you're spending time with someone and every time you're with them something bad happens, well then there's a common denominator there, and you have to kind of be a realist, and make that call. But I'm not saying that that's ideal for everyone. I mean, in my life it's kind of like I'm an essentialist. I try to practice essentialism, and have less but better in all aspects of my life, and it's kind of the way I do it. And sometimes that backfires, and it has backfired in the past, but it's part of it, and it's kind of you have to live with the yin and the yang, I suppose.
Yeah, so you've obviously got a bit of depth to you, mate. You've got a bit of philosophy, like you're not just
Yeah, mate, reading, like I think you said earlier there, like, what are some parts of what I do, and I touched on reading briefly, but just after you say about philosophy, like reading's been one of the biggest things I've done, Decky, that's kind of helped me cope. I mean, it's been my savior over this past coronavirus period. Like, it's literally been what saved my ass. is getting my daily pages in. So, but yeah, it's kind of like, reading and getting exposed to that information is so handy.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading three books at the moment. I'm reading a book called Principles by Ray Dalio. An incredible book. It's pretty much about this guy that started a company called Bridgewater, one of the most successful investment firms on earth, and he's over the period of a 60-year career, he set up all these principles that he just identified, and that they're actually governed by law of nature, and they're so true. So I love that, and it's been an awesome book. And then I'm reading Richard Branson's Losing My Virginity, and then I'm reading The Magical Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which is a good book.
That's getting a lot of traction recently, yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of books that I have a very bad attention span, so I can't just have one on the go. It really depends what mood I'm in when I go to read.
Very good. I haven't read any of those, so I'm going to have to write those down and maybe get them off Amazon after this, or have a look for them after this.
If we're doing recommendations, Decky, I would definitely put Essentialism by Greg McKeown in there. An incredible book. I would say to anyone, go and buy it. And then the first book this book changed my life. The one I'm about to say was the first book I ever read. I read it while doing traveling, and it was essentially the book that gave me the kick up the ass to start OLY. And it's called The Science of Getting Rich by Walter D. Wallace. And it's incredible. It was written in like 1902 or 1903 or something, written in Old English. But the way that guy breaks down the power of thought and the power of will and the way to think about things is just incredible. So yeah, those are definitely two I would highly recommend as well.
Fabulous. I am writing those down right now, man. I'm looking forward to getting a look at these. And twice now you have just mentioned in the space of 5 minutes essentialism. Which I don't have a great understanding of, but I presume is really just about sort of concentrating down, like you said, what you need in and around your life there.
Yeah.
Is that something that you're deliberately practicing now? Sort of in prepping for talking to you, had a little bit of a look at your website and flicking through a few bits and pieces and your social media pages. And one of the things that I actually noticed years ago was, with my branding, I have a personal thing that I don't like stock images and stock videos, I like my images from my branding to be from clinic and from me and my patients and my people. I don't want what I would call like fake stuff. I know that works for other companies, and that's fine. It's just not for me. But I noticed with you and with the models and the people that you're using in your pictures and even on selling on your website, these are people
Yeah.
These are not like, you haven't hired in models and you haven't used stock images. You seem to have used like friends, like people that are your first circle one. And,
literally.
And do you think that comes from essentialism? Is that just purely identifying, these are the people I trust, I'm going to just put you straight in?
So essentialism is a whole kettle of fish that I got introduced to this year. So I practice minimalism as well, which is, I read a minimalism book about 2 years ago, and it's called Minimalism: Everything That Remains, and it's about these two guys that had everything and yet they had nothing. So if you relate to that, definitely read that book. But essentialism is just it's almost like a different flavor of ice cream with regards to minimalism. Essentialism for me came about, I was just so utterly confused, Decky, from friendships, relationships, business, life, goals in general. Like for me, I feel like if I put my mind to anything, I can do it, whether that be, and I mean this literally, whether that be going to the moon or starting OLY, I'll just do it. It doesn't matter to me. So whenever you live with, like, for me, like, I'm only relating to me. So whenever you live with this mindset that you can do anything you put your mind to, and again, I mean that in the literal sense, it can become very, very easy to be overwhelmed with analysis paralysis of all these things that you can achieve, that you can do, that you could do a great job at. But yet, if you do everything you're not going to get anything done right. And that was something that I had to learn the hard way. And for 2 years, you know, I was making 30 or 40 decisions every day, big decisions. And, you know, we were getting progress, yes, but the essence of the decision maybe wasn't right. So I was, you know, I was faced with all these different elements of life, and it came to the point where I was like, I could do all of them, but nothing's going to get done right. And stumbled across this essentialism book then, and it's pretty much streamlined my whole life. So essentialism is pretty much the art of doing less but better, um, or it's the art of living by design and not default. So what that means is, you know, I design my life wholeheartedly, completely. I design my life for the way I want it to be, you know. So I write my goals for competition, personal, spirituality, friendship, and those are the four pillars of my life. And you know, I used to have 18 personal goals right up till last year, and that's awesome, you know. But every time I fucking looked at the list, you know, I was maybe chipping one off every 3 months or 2 months, and I was like, nah, like I want three big goals for each, or you know, two big goals or one big goal for each, and then two smaller ones, and just revisit it every time. So yeah, it's kind of come from a point of just kind of streamlining my life. You know, I'm not giving as much energy to as many different things, and really, it's boiled it down to now I'm doing 3 or 4 things at 85% rather than 8 things at 50%. You know, so within that, the quality of my work's better. My ability to train harder for competition is better. You know, I take my relationships more seriously now. I value my relationships. Spirituality. You know, I'm trying to develop a belief system for myself. And you can understand everybody faces that, and that's something that's important. So, yeah, it just came from fucking being so confused all the time, and now I feel clear in what my goals are, clear in what I'm trying to do, and it's really all come from this essentialism book, and really trying to bring it into my life.
You sound like a guy who's really sort of content and calm in your the way you're going about things right now. And I know from knowing you personally, and I know from talking to you right now, that you're not the kind of guy that I could see clocking in and out of a factory every day doing a 9 to 5, man. I think you were somebody who always needed to do your own thing.
Yeah,
You
big
know,
time.
I relate to that because, you know, even though I've always enjoyed my work, I haven't always enjoyed my jobs. And
Yeah,
I was able to make the decision to walk away from a very safe, very stable job and start my own thing. And as you know, and I know, you start with nothing or nearly nothing, and you build it all yourself. It's all on you. But I have loved every minute of it. Like, it's been really,
yeah,
really hard, like indescribably hard. But it's not like I don't wake up and think I've got to go to work. It's just like it's just this permanent part of your life that it just feels like, well, this is what I do. Everything I decide is part of the project that I'm doing here. It doesn't ever feel like work to me.
yeah, yeah, mate. I think I totally feel the same way, and you said something there that is really it's true. Like, it becomes a part of your life, and a lot of people think it's cool to do your own thing. A lot of people think it's like the in thing, and it is in a way. You know, the barriers to entry for business have never been lower. You know, especially with the online e-commerce world, but no, I think I relate to a lot of what you said, Daki, because it's just simple self gratification. You know, we live in a day and age where it's so easy to get everything now, and whenever you kind of do something that isn't easy or isn't done overnight, it's incredibly gratifying. It's incredibly rewarding. Like, for example, you'll be putting wee tiny twists and turns on your business model to kind of make it, you know, the pendulum physio experience, you know. And that's the most awesome thing about business, is that if I go to you and I go to another guy, they're going to be two different services, you know, still serving ice cream but just a different flavor. And
It's so weird that you say that, because that is a really common thing that I say about a different flavor of rehab or a different. I
yeah,
always use that term flavor, and people always look at me like, "What do you want about flavor?" I've never heard anybody else talking about that.
Mate, I'm a massive guy for analogies, but no, even to run with that, Decky, I would agree, and I think why it's so rewarding is because you're the one putting the hours in, you're the one that sees all the tiny changes and tweaks, and it can be the most rewarding thing whenever, for example, you've put in a certain protocol or you've changed the reception area and someone comes in and they say, oh, that's a bit of a change there. That's nice, and it's the best thing in the world. But I think it's like the reason you went into doing what you were doing is because one, you thought you could add more value, you could do a better job, you could solve a problem faster, you could serve others better, you could impact people more positively. For one of those 5 reasons, you got into business and thought that you should go out on your own. And whenever you kind of get that all up and going, it's so hard. People think it's easy, but it's not. And kind of when you get to the 6-month stage or the year stage or the 2-year stage, you're like, shit, right? I'm still not in control of this beast, but like we're getting there. And that to me is the most rewarding thing. I mean, money, and I know for a fact money couldn't put a price on the hour and the sweat equity that you've put into the business.
It can never be about money because look, most business owners don't ever make loads and loads of money. In fact, we know that most new businesses go bust within 12 to 18 months. So for the ones that survive, great. But I'm sure you're the same, man. There's moments where you're just exhausted physically and mentally, where you haven't slept in days, where you're broke, and you're just going, do you know what? This is brilliant. This is just still what I wanted to do. And all right, so I've got all these problems. So what? I'm going to figure them out. They're on me. It's my decision.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going.
I think there's a quote that really sticks out in my mind, and it's I don't mean it a bad way, but it's something that really resonated with me, and it was the best day of working for someone else is still worse than the worst day of working for yourself, and it's the truth, man. At least if I come home and I've had a shitty day, I can say, right, well, that's where I went wrong. That's where we feel that's where we need to improve on. Whereas if I'm in a big business that I don't give a fuck about, I'm leaving at 5 o'clock and I am not caring until I come in at 9 the next day. And I don't want that. I'm not a person that does things half-assed and just kind of floats through life. I want to live with purpose and intent, and what I've just said is so true.
I'm getting towards the end of the podcast. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, listening to you, and not even for the podcast, just like on a personal level, I've really enjoyed this catch up, man.
No, I appreciate it too, man. It's been good.
But like hearing so many similarities in the things that you're saying and the way that I think and the way that I feel, and I've definitely experienced the last 2-3 years as being the happiest period of my life, simply because I realize that all of my happiness and all of my contentment is based on me. It doesn't rely on what anybody else does or what anybody else
exactly
does. Internal, like it's self gratification is the only gratification, and so yeah, I think when you realize that and you start building your life around, well, this is how I want to feel in life. So I'm going to put things in place that make me feel good and make me productive and successful. I think once I took responsibility for that, I was very, very happy.
Decky, you gotta remember, man, like, there's people that get to 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 and they've lived their whole life by default. And it's kind of what I said earlier, and not to bring it back to the essentialism thing, but everybody deserves to be happy. Everybody has the right to be happy. And, if you're constantly living and trying to impress people and serve others with no return, and you're trying to make people happy constantly at the risk of losing your own happiness, it's not worth it. Can you imagine the tragedy it would be to be on your deathbed, when you're 90, 95, 100, probably 130 by the time we get there with the healthcare.
Living forever, yeah, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Can you imagine the regret you'd have? I mean, there was one thing that I done, and it's just the way my head works is I'm a complete visionary. I'm completely left-brained, and that I just see the end goal, and that's it. That's all I need. And in execution, there's elements of execution in there to get from A to B, and I respect that. But for me, I can so vividly visualize things. And one of the mentors I have, he said, look, imagine, or he goes, picture yourself, you're 90, you're sitting in your hospital room, you're on your deathbed. How do you feel? And like whenever he said that to me, I went home and I could feel the wind on my fingers. I could experience my thought. I could understand how I felt, and whenever I put myself in that position, it really makes it clear about, how I want to be remembered and how I want to have my legacy live on. And it's very, very out there and it's very rah, but it's so fucking true. I mean, you know, whenever you boil things down to how you want to be remembered in terms of your relationships and your impact you left on the world and how you served others, and all the good things or philanthropic things you done, that's how you'll be measured. Not by how much fucking zeros you had in your bank account, not by how many jobs you had or how much nice cars you had. It's not that, it's the impact you left on the world. And that's what really is important. So every day I show up, mate, and I know that that's kind of what I'm working towards. I want to set a good example for my kids when they come, and I want to be financially successful and financially free, that I can go and do the projects that I really, really want to do, and leave my mark on the world.
You may have just answered what was going to be one of my final questions, which I was going to ask you about, what would you say to a young person today who tells you they've got a business idea? But you've just spoken about, like, someday you're going to be dead, and just before you die, how are you going to look back? I'm presuming that conversation is going to form an element of what you're going to say to a young person today with a business idea.
Yeah, but I'd say there's also a practical element of that I would need to include. For anybody looking to start a business, I would say, look, it's either going to be a product or a service. Every business on earth is based on that principle. Your product or service is either going to add value, save time, add value, save time, add convenience, or save money. One of those four things, or hope as well as in there, add hope. So if your business falls under one of those five things that I've just said, it will work, or there's need for it. But I would say to anybody starting out, get so passionate about what you're going to do. Make sure it's something that you want to do every day. Make sure it's something that you don't want to get paid for. Make sure it's something that you will never get sick of. And it's very easy to look at your hobbies and passions and interests for that. But be very cautious, because you could end up taking something that you've loved and end up hating it, which nobody wants. Secondly, I would say, look, in your early days, starting out, you're not going to have all the money in the world unless you've got a rich daddy. For me, I didn't. So what I had to do was read and learn, so that whenever the time came, you had intellectually matured a lot more than the real life maturity. So you knew that whenever money started coming in, what you had to do with it. That the right thing was to invest it back in, and you'll learn that over time. But there's an element of, it's going to be so slow in the start, so just learn and be a sponge and be open-minded and be objective and take criticism and listen to everyone, but filter their opinion, because there's nothing worse than just asking for everyone's advice. Not everybody knows or has it right. And let me tell you, in the early days, everyone will want to give you their opinion. So that's one risk, but do take it on board, but with a pinch of salt. There's a lot of elements to it. Like we said, Decky, hard work is probably one of the most underlying things. The ability to just wake up every day and just go at it again without diminishing motivation it's an art, and it becomes habit, and it will become habit. And it's okay to understand that on days you won't want to get up and do it. That's fine. You get those days, but you still got to get up and do it. That's just bottom line. So yeah, I think like that's a nice wee ingredient mix for someone getting started.
I think that is brilliant advice, man. Brilliant advice. I really want to get my last couple of questions in before the battery dies on my iPad, okay?
Sweet.
So Look, man, huge amount of content going into the conversation, and I think really great value for the listeners, both just like from a lifestyle point of view and some brilliant business advice, and some look, for your age, man, the amount of experience that you have and the amount of things that you've done is incredible. So I definitely think a lot of young people with ideas should sit up and listen to a lot of stuff that you've got to say.
I appreciate that.
I keep it quite light. I keep it quite light for my last couple of questions that I ask people, buddy. So wanted to ask you, what's your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, mate, you can't ask me that. Well, actually, you can. I know what my favorite movie of all time is, but on any given day, the top three will change. I'm a massive movie fan, so my long-standing favorite movie of all time is Cat in the Hat. Believe it or not.
It's what? Sorry.
Cat in the Hat.
Cat in the
Hat. Yeah. You know. Take your.
I didn't see that coming.
Man. Yeah, I'm a big fan of cinematography, and that movie specifically, Mike Myers absolutely nails it. Typically, we see Mike Myers in adult themed movies, put it that way. But he comes on and he absolutely kills it in Dr. Seuss's Cat in the Hat movie. It is, and the way he like, I watched that movie when I was like 11, 12, and the adult themes and the derogatory digs he does is so it's such good acting that I just appreciate it so much that it wins it for me. But you've got, I'm a big war movie guy as well, so We Were Soldiers or Platoon is definitely up there. Pursuit of Happiness by Will Smith is another one as well, another wee feel good. But yeah, man. But do you know what? I'm a sucker for anything that's based on a true story.
Very good. I was very, very nearly tempted. I haven't had a lot of time at home, funny enough. I thought I would have a lot of time at home, but I don't. But I was very tempted to rewatch Remember the Titans recently, because we got the Disney Plus. But I'll leave that for another day. So, mate, who would be your ultimate dinner guest, Lewis?
I've actually thought about this question long and hard before, and in this discussion, I get a couple of turned heads, but probably Hitler.
I'm sorry for laughing, but I can see where you get a couple of turned heads. I can definitely see where that might raise an eyebrow.
Yeah.
But you'd have a lot of questions, I'm sure, from.
Not necessarily a lot of questions, Decky, but you got to remember that he started one of the biggest social movements in history. He convinced millions of people to kill other millions of people. So what he done was essentially wrong. The essence of what he done was totally horrible. But I would love to get into his mind and see how he convinced so many people and how he motivated and because he was one of the best communicators of all time. And that's true. He was one of the best public speakers of all time, and for me, someone who is obsessed with how does someone get from A to B, whether that's leading a company, communicating, selling, building, it doesn't matter. It's how they get from A to B is what I'm interested in. And it's always fascinated me how he went unchallenged, how he took Europe in less than 2 weeks, how he got all the death camps going, how he made that okay, which they're wars against humanity, but yet he convinced people to do them. So it's really from a perspective of trying to get inside his mind and seeing how the fuck he done it, but I would happily go back and during that conversation I'd slap him silly and I'd say, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, look, it was VE Day just the other day, and look, I find World War II fascinating. The same, I find those ideas of how Hitler delivered what he delivered bizarre. Certainly would be an intriguing dinner guest. I hope you're keeping a revolver under the table during.
Oh yeah, big time.
But I suppose, what's the point in killing monsters if we can't also learn from them?
Exactly.
But I'm going to try to keep it light. Okay.
Yeah.
Move on. So my final question for you, Lewis, is what's going to be your next adventure, mate?
This adventure, in terms of business, in terms of life, or what? Next adventure, Decky. Gut's telling me right now that I haven't really done a 5-year plan in a while. I've been meaning to do it, but my guts telling me that it is build OLY clothing, to be the biggest and best company it can do, or it can be, sorry. Continue to add value to our customers and our followers. Continue to learn and grow as an individual. Continue to kind of refine my idea and what I want from life. But yeah, it's really, my life's just business at the moment. Competitively, I'm now healthy again, so I've just linked up with a new coach. So whenever all this blows over, I'm going and trying to qualify for a CrossFit sanctional, which is no easy feat. So yeah, my life's I'm pretty much in a bit of a rebuild phase right now. I've dropped all habits I had. The only habit I have is eating a healthy lunch and showing up to work every day. Those are the only two things I've latched onto. I didn't CrossFit there for a whole month. I didn't get up early anymore. I don't go to bed at a certain time. I'm literally rebuilding my life from scratch, and it's been a really, really liberating and scary thing. So I would say, yeah, Jackie, for the next 6 months, I'm just gonna start rebuilding, adding in the habits that I want, scrutinizing everything that I'm doing, trying to make sure what I'm doing is right, and that my contribution is at its highest point for all the things that I do, really. Because it's easy to just be a busy fool, and I don't want that.
What a brilliant note to finish on, buddy, because you could have answered anything there for your next adventure. You could have told me that you were going to go to Bali or lie on a beach in Mexico. But again, just that total focus and commitment to meaning that you've got a lifestyle there where you're training and your business and your personal life. It's just all part of the same sort of bundle, and you're just totally focused on keeping all of that rolling on to the next level. So yeah, brilliant way to round it off that conversation, buddy. Thank you.
No, and listen, mate, it's been awesome. I've really, really enjoyed this chat. You've asked some really, really good questions, and we both know that's a game changer.
I think there's some great listening in here, buddy. I'm really looking forward to sort of doing a little intro and a little outro on this podcast and getting it out there, hopefully within the next sort of week or two. But I really, really appreciate of you coming on. I know that you've got all this other things to be doing. You didn't have to do this, so very, very thankful to you, mate. I'm going to point everybody in the direction of getting on the OLY or the OLY website and having a good look around, making some purchases. And I'm really looking forward to go and make sure that my package arrives soon, all right, buddy? I'm looking
yeah, Graham says you put in an order, so we're looking after you. Don't worry.
I'm hoping it would arrive before today. Do you know what I mean? Like represent.
Yeah. No figure will have to be.
I know. COVID got everything delayed. All right. I know it's delivery guys. It's not you guys. Seriously, Lewis, thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure talking today, and I'll catch up with you again soon. All right, buddy.
I really enjoyed it, Jackie. Thank you so much, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, mate.